Eitan Shander.
Yes, a continued happy, positive Monday that we had last week that carries over. And I don't even think it matters. Look, it's one thing if we talk about covering the spread, and I'll get to this crazy ending from a betting standpoint, especially anybody who rode into that game riding the Cardinals at 7 or 6.5 or even 6 down to the wire there. But moral victories aside, because I don't think that this is anything remotely close to that, there is a level of excitement that is undeniable right now in Philadelphia with fans on social media, people that are talking about this team across the country. It doesn't matter if it's national television, if it's national radio, or if it's whatever's happening here locally in this city. But Jalen Hurts has been the talk of the town, and the town can be anywhere from Philadelphia, Delaware Valley to the United States, Bristol, Connecticut to Los Angeles, where Jalen Hurts has been the subject of conversation. And last week, it was, yeah, they beat the Saints, but he ran too much. Show me that he can throw the football. This week, they don't beat the Arizona Cardinals. And I know that there is still a scenario. We'll talk about that at length. I promise you about how they could actually win and still win the NFC East. But that aside, I think for the most part, the season has been thrown away. It's not even in the process anymore. It's full on been crumpled up and discarded. So Jalen Hurts provided a lot more than just a spark on the field. Jalen Hurts brought people back. It wasn't just Travis Fulgham and Zach Ertz on the field that he brought back. Travis Fulgham, Zach Ertz, and others aside, he brought a city back to a football team. Do you know how difficult it is to turn Eagles fans apathetic? Do you know how hard it is to go out of your way to make people say, enough is enough. Put me out of my misery. Chip Kelly didn't have that, to be fair to him, for his entire tenure, his 2 4/5 years that he spent here. He didn't even have that. The first year was excitement. The first year we were putting him in the Hall of Fame. It was insane. And then he started to wear. And then it started to get old. And yeah, it's different with the Sixers or the Flyers or the Phillies. It's different with other teams. It's different with athletes. It's different unless you're an Eagle, unless you're coaching or running the Philadelphia Eagles. Then, not so much. And this year was one of the 2 years that I truly saw apathy. Now, I would say for a calendar year, probably a little longer, but a season, that second into third year, by Chip Kelly's third year, which it didn't even last, we were so numb to football. It was just out of our misery. They weren't going to get Mariota. That first year seemed like a distant dream, like a fantasy, like something we concocted to get out of this torturous situation as a fan. Well, this season, and it's no individual knock, Carson Wentz is a big problem. I'm sure a lot of people agree. Doesn't mean that we're writing him off. Maybe some of you have. That's fine. But this season was far beyond simply, I'm upset, I'm pissed off, I'm angry. People moved past that stage. And that's something that I'm on this planet 42 years. And as an Eagles fan, people in Philadelphia made sure that if I got out of where I was from, that wasn't Philadelphia initially, at the very least, because it wasn't that long of a drive, I would at very least, didn't care about any other team, it was the Eagles. Indoctrinated in it as young as I remember. Other teams, not so much. But in this case, I can't even remember as a child to this point in which it was, I don't even care anymore. And think about what flipped. Think about how that changed. Where Jalen Hurts, one player, all of a sudden, Doug Peterson can coach, right? Isn't that funny how that works? All of a sudden, plays are working on offense. All of a sudden, there are people that evaporated in front of our eyes, just disappeared, that are out there making plays. Alshon Jeffrey's back from the dead. It's like some comedy, some zombie comedy, where instead of him throwing to another player, he's throwing to some zombie. And it's Alshon Jeffrey's corpse that's been rejuvenated and now is out there running fluid like a human being. Whatever the buddy comedy is or whatever it is, the zombie version of Alien Nation, whatever it is you want to throw out there. That's what it would be like. He's throwing to a zombie, man. Yeah, that bunch of zombies are out there now. And Alshon Jeffrey he's reviving people. He brought Travis Fulgham, Zach Ertz back from the dead. Granted, it wasn't much, but still, when needed. The point of it being that this isn't just rejuvenating or sparking an offense. This is far more. This was a major statement that Jalen Hurts was able to help provide. And I think a lot of us throughout this year, we needed it. We needed it. It didn't matter. Think about that. Think about the difference between it doesn't matter, right? We just got to the same end that I just explained and tried to write off as a rare occurrence twice, 2 times over an anomaly in which it's happened. Very, very few, if any, that you'll see people just say, I don't even care what happens. But in that way, which is just knock me out of my misery, I don't even give a damn what happens to this team anymore. We just said that. I just said that. A lot of people said that. I know I tweeted it out during the game, which is I'm having so much fun watching this team. I don't even care. Now, that's much different from an emotional standpoint on the emotional scale. The opposite, if you will, of apathetic. You're fully invested to the point at which you're blinded by your joy and your sense of enjoyment and your sense of involvement and how really entrenched you are in just watching plays develop, and your heart is pounding and pulsating at the idea that this team can go down and actually tie a game up or even win it if they went for 2, as Doug hinted that he would in the postgame presser. Crazy to see a rejuvenation in fans. Crazy to see life push back in. And that's what we got. And it only took 2 full games. It started against Green Bay, but it only took 2 full games. It didn't even matter. Wild. Didn't matter for me, and I know it didn't matter for a lot of people as far as the ending of that game. And now moving forward, it's hard to really imagine a scenario in which Carson Wentz plays again the regular season, outside, of course, of an injury, barring an injury, which would be catastrophic. But let's go back, because this will be constantly overlooked. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't outsmart anybody. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't leapfrog. The Philadelphia Eagles took Hurts early because they already had a quarterback. But there's no real proof, and it's hard now because everybody's going to say whatever the hell they want following the draft. But teams past Philadelphia in the second round that needed a quarterback would definitely be eyeing Jalen Hurts. There was concern that he couldn't make some throws. There were college to pro level concerns about Jalen Hurts for whatever reason. I didn't think that they were enough to drop him out, but he was branded for a while as somebody that just couldn't crack the first round, probably would slip. Second round pick, or maybe late first if he got lucky, depending on the scenario. Maybe there's a trade up, things along those lines. And also, depending on who didn't get their shot at a quarterback early in the first round, things would play out. But he was right there. This is not a third round pick that the Eagles jumped the gun and now look insanely smart because Jalen Hurts can play quarterback. A lot of us, and I am part of them, like a lot of people are, and I'm far from it. I'm probably in the mid to back and level of importance here, way back, depending on who you ask, and I'm fine with that. Jalen Hurts could play, and we knew he could make some throws, and we knew that he could throw on the run, and we knew that he could use his legs, and if properly coached, we knew that Jalen Hurts had a really legit shot at being an NFL quarterback, and that this should come as no surprise. What came as a surprise, beyond, of course, of having Carson Wentz showing zero signs of any issues, what came as a surprise was them trying to box him into some Taysom Hill perversion of the position, which was never going to work because Jalen Hurts is an actual quarterback. He's not a gimmick. Taysom Hill is a gimmick. Jalen Hurts is far from that. Jalen Hurts is an NFL-grade quarterback. So I don't even worry about following the next year. I don't worry about the offseason. We'll have a chat with Rob Motti from the Associated Press at the top of the hour. He spoke with Carson Wentz and reported the complete opposite of what Adam Schefter reported from ESPN 3-4 hours before kick yesterday. The big thing now, and put a poll up earlier just to kind of get people thinking about it, would be where you stand right now from a turnaround betting standpoint. This line against Dallas, and it's very rare that on a Monday we would immediately flip things over and talk about this upcoming line, but we're talking about a completely different football team. How can you not see that? How can you not experience that jumping through your television? Anybody who was watching that, you would have to be brand new to the Philadelphia Eagles, asking yourself, what's going on here? Asking yourself, what happened? Why are people not truly disappointed or mad or angry about a loss? Why are they celebrating? It's not celebrating the loss. It's not being happy about the team losing, although I'll get to that. And in this show for these 2 hours, it never matters. What it really is about just enjoying something that we had not really experienced or we had not seen for a long time this year. For how many games in a row this year? To where Carson Wentz was removed from Green Bay, and then following that, you get a win against the Saints. And yeah, the Saints were asleep. I understand that. Not banging the drum that anything crazy happened or different happened. It just, the team looked better. And the team continued to look better. And Hurts did it a different way. Hurts threw the football this time. So knowing that the Eagles, and it's moving a little bit, it went from 1.5 to 2. Knowing that the Eagles on a short line right now turn around and have to go into Dallas, do you really experience a letdown right now? I mean, is there any letdown to even be had at this point based on what Jalen Hurts and this team was able to do? Based on how, following a win over the Saints, that team did not let down. Now, they started slow and down 16, and to come back and make that a football game was crazy. It's something that we haven't seen really at all. It would take a fourth quarter prevent defense, allowing Carson Wentz to dink and doink and dunk his way down. Just that to get to a point in which the Eagles may score to get in contention if they get another stop and then score again. This was, hey, man, they were down 16. I don't want to go full Talib on you, but hey, man, they were down 16. And they have a shot right now to tie this game up. They had 2 Hail Marys to tie this game up. That alone was a difference maker. Just being in that situation against a team that was firing, man. They were doing everything they could. And Kyler Murray was a little loose with it, as was DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that this was a team sleepwalking like New Orleans the week before. This was a team desperate to get out of that situation with a win. Any way possible, they had to, because they needed to keep pace. There's a big difference between New Orleans, who's, we're okay. We can still win this game no matter what. Just brushing it off like a LeBron James team taking on the Cavs now, or just thinking, whatever, it doesn't even matter. Let's see how down we can get before we storm back, just to add some level of excitement. Now, in this case with Arizona, they were throwing everything they possibly could. All right, we got a busy show coming up. Now, I want you to think about this real quick. What are the odds? Fox Sports Radio The Gambler, again, at Shander Show. For me, it's all presented by Cure Auto Insurance. In about 15 minutes, we'll chat with the Philly Godfather, PGF, get his thoughts on tonight, and we have plenty on that. Remember, we bring you up to 8 o'clock. John Jansen, the line change at that point. Back on a later hour tomorrow, 7 to 9, following the Rodney McLeod Show. Then back 6 to 8 on Wednesday, and then we are off for that week. So we'll jam everything we can in, from Christmas Day game to the Philadelphia Eagles and Cowboys, and even look ahead a little bit. And again, Rob Motti at the top of the next hour from the Associated Press on his reporting that Carson Wentz does not want out, at least right now. And then wait until you hear this advice that Rob will leave us with. I happen to know. Had a chat with Rob earlier, happened to know where he's going on it. So think of it like a little bit of ESP. Now, I guess I can't use that. Isn't that extrasensory perception? But I can't use that because people think of someone technically someone else. So forget I said that. Strike that from the record. I'll go full Your Honor on that. Speaking of which, John, are you aware of this show on Showtime? Your Honor with Bryan Cranston?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so I know at one point, and poor Deja, right? I mean, she was with us for a little bit, and I roped her in to watching that bad show, The Undoing. And I feel bad for her because she probably watched a couple of episodes, and then things happened, and she moved back to different stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, man, the only reason why she even watched that show was to appease me, knowing that we'd be on. I didn't like it. I didn't like how it ended. I thought it was just a complete fall off the cliff type program. I expected a lot more. This is really good television. I'm 3 episodes. That's how you have so far. It's really good TV. Cranston is, at his finest. He's not Walter White, and that's a great departure from who he is anyways. He's very vulnerable. He's a judge. The show plays out in New Orleans, and his son is in a part of town for a specific reason. I'm not really giving a ton away, but I don't want to give that away. And accidentally hit and essentially runs on the murder of the son of like the big mob boss in town. And he's riding a bike that he got on his birthday. So then Bryan Cranston spends what I imagine is the entire show trying to hide this as a judge. And then you have all the inner politics of it. It's crazy, but it's really, I'm blown away. I didn't go into it expecting much, but I'm really blown away. I'm surprised it's been talked about a bunch. You haven't seen anything at all about it. I know that you're locked into, you're not a TV guy per se, but.
Yeah, I haven't been watching much TV lately. That should probably change. But I got to admit, Eitan, with your track record as of late, I don't know. Can I trust you with this? After the Undoing debacle,
Here's the thing, though. I felt like I was kind of roped in to the Undoing because I misread something on the wiki page ahead of time. I misread something where it was talking about I thought there was another element to the Undoing, that there was a pandemic. Maybe it was something like this. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. But I misread that. So I think, and to be honest with you, look, the show was a dud. And I admit that. And you can't bat 1,000 on this stuff. But overall, I mean, I think the shows that I stand by, overall, I'm at a pretty good clip here. I think that the record in which I have for advising or suggesting overall is pretty good. Now, to be fair, I can't claim this one. Harry Mays is the one who fathered this suggestion. And I was kind of out on it initially because I thought, here we go. It's going to be some Walter White type stuff. But it's not. It's really good. And here's the thing. If I'm wrong, I mean, I don't even know. Like, how would we prove that? You're not going to watch this show.
No, probably not.
Yeah. So it's not like I'd owe you a sandwich in a month after you watch 4 episodes and then turn around and say, hey, this is a pretty damn good show. You don't have the time nor interest, to be fair, in that,
yeah,
right?
Probably not. I'm not I haven't watched Breaking Bad very much, and it's not that I didn't like it, but I just never got interested in it. So anything with Bryan Cranston, I'm sure the intrigue comes from the fact that he came from, one of the best TV shows of the past decade or two.
Well, yeah, but I also think that Bryan Cranston has really strong comedic range. If you look at Bryan Cranston from his early on, just even popping in on certain shows, right? I mean, a lot of people are going to remember him on Seinfeld, but you also have a pretty funny recurring character on King of Queens, who was different, mind you, much different than the character on Seinfeld. And then, of course, people will always reference Malcolm in the Middle, where he was ridiculously over the top on purpose. And then you start to look at some other roles that he played with, some dramatic roles that he was in. And he showed already really a lot of range. And then Breaking Bad comes around. And yes, he's been in some comedies already, and he's been in some drama, if you will, already. But there was never something like that where it was a transformation into like a total badass. And that's where I think now people crazily unfair pigeonhole him into like, oh, okay, well, if he's not Walter White, then I'm not really interested. But that's like Sneaky Pete. He kind of was straddling that line of is it going to be a little bit of a Walter White type bad guy or not? That's all. But Your Honor, I love, man. I love this show. Absolutely. All right. So tonight you've got a pretty big line as expected. Going into it, I don't know how many of you did this, but for me at least, it was more of trying to take advantage of breaking this line down a little bit, trying to take advantage of where I think it's an absolute lock, and then mixing that in with a couple of other plays. So the early on play, and this was, I think we even had this play out last week. Maybe this was Tuesday. This was early in the week because we had to wait for clearly the one Monday night game to be over. But we went through a bunch of different plays. We had 8. And the 2, of course, that did not hit for me, and for anybody out there who was listening and playing along, are some brutal ones. Before we even get to tonight, and I'll just let you know, if you were listening last week, and this was a Tuesday night, we had a couple of different plays on there, and I'll run through the 8-game ticket here. But the last one, the 8 of 8, is laying the 6.5. And again, this is all in a 3-bet parlay round robin, so you've got a bunch of different plays from minus 250, minus 213 in this case, up to minus 110, standard plays. The 2 that did not hit, and that's really the big ones. Rams minus 9.5. We busted that down to 9.5 and had no shot. 0 shot. Like, I didn't even have a shot. When it was all said and done, the Rams had a chance to win the game by a point. In game, they were down 13-3. In game, I jumped on that at minus 1.5, thinking, okay, I have to salvage something. The 9.5 is not going to hit. Thought that I would outsmart the line. 9.5, not so fast. Instead, it's a debacle. I mean, I was embarrassed myself. I was embarrassed for Sean McVay and Jared Goff. And I despise watching them because I always know that there are about 3 or 4 clunkers that they're good for each year. And then they lose in postseason contention, and everybody starts asking, how could a team underachieve like this with all this money on defense and all this how could they do that? Well, we've been paying attention. This is kind of their MO. When nobody is watching, the LA Rams stink. When nobody cares, when nobody's focusing on them, and then all of a sudden, when the lights get brightest, meaning, hey, you got to win this game to get in the playoffs or stay alive in the playoff hunt, or simply you're in the playoffs, right up to the Super Bowl. Bright lights, too bright. Sean McVay, his eyes went numb the second he had a conversation with Bill Belichick. It was over. So the Rams on Sunday just kicked me right in the stones, right in the middle, which you can hear 11-1 on Philly Voice. Awful. Just pounded. I couldn't believe that one. I think anybody who had think about this, Rams minus 9.5. Okay, I get it. I busted them down. And even still, you would think that's a pretty good number. Maybe the Jets get lucky. Maybe there's some Hail Mary. Maybe they find a way to cut it to 8 to 7. That's always possible. We've seen that before with the Jets team. Okay, I get it. But how about, and I had a guy earlier in the day hit me up on the other stream, say he lost this on a money line play. Oh, can you imagine a 4, 5, 6 game parlay? This being the one that busts it? This being the one that knocks you off? Here you are stretching out your arms thinking, man, I got this thing locked up. All I need is LA on the money line. And instead, which was a pretty hefty, I mean, you probably didn't even move, to be fair, that, but if it's connected, and you lose, you're busted. That's a hell of a way to go out. And the other one, which came down to a push for a lot of people, I got burned on the Chiefs at the start of the week, Tuesday, technically, because when we laid this ticket out from the first half under with Seattle, the Cowboys getting 7.5, Colts -3, Arizona -6. So you damn right at that point, I saw enough from Jalen Hurts to feel good about what I thought was a good, competent quarterback. I was rooting at that point, at that moment of time, at that juncture. And like that says at the top of every show, here we do. I don't care if you want to lose, just cover the spread. Just cover the spread. And the only way in which Arizona was going to cover that 6 points was if they held off Philadelphia. So for a drive, yes, where a lot of people were just happy to have football back, myself included, I had no choice but to jump on the Kyler Murray train. That aside, Cleveland -3.5, no problem there against the Giants. Awful, ugly football game was forced to watch. But Kansas City, how about that? Again, a lot of people, 3 points. It was a push. People were very happy. But if you jumped on it early in the week, it was a 3.5-point line, and you got bit right there, a big, huge chomp in your rear because that 3.5 got you with that late touchdown by the Saints. Ridiculous. We'll chat with the Philly Godfather coming up next. What are the odds? Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. I'm Eitan Shander. It's all presented by Cure Auto Insurance.
Fox Sports Radio.
You're clear.
Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Are you talking to me? Because it sounded low for some